Outside the Red Box, insights into global research equipment distribution. Welcome to the Outside the Red Box podcast, your go-to podcast for insights on growing and scaling life science brands globally. Brought to you by Redbox Direct, we specialize in outsourced sales, distribution, and manufacturing for scientific instruments, with over 20 years of hands-on experience. Let's get started with today's episode.
So let's just, picture a scenario for a second. It's a Tuesday morning. You're the CEO of a company that, you built from the ground up. You put in all the work, you've conquered your home market, and honestly, you're feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, that's the dream scenario, right? That feeling that everything you touch is just working. It's addictive.
It is. And because it's addictive, you start thinking bigger.
Yeah.
You're looking at the map, you see the oceans, and you think, okay, why stop here? You decide it's time to go global. But then something weird happens. The playbook that worked perfectly at home, it just, it breaks.
Sales stall. The momentum just vanishes. And you're left there scratching your head thinking, what on earth just happened?
It's a shockingly common story. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a really fascinating piece by a writer named Rory Gagan called The Challenges of Setting Up a Remote Sales Office.
Right. And the mission here is to really unpack why going global is so much harder than just, doing what you do at home, but in another country. We're looking at the landmines.
The legal ones, the human ones, all the hidden traps. So let's kick things off with the diagnosis. Before you even rent an office, the source makes this really sharp distinction between order taking and actual selling.
They're a world apart. And confusing them is, I think, the very first trap. I mean, think about how companies start exporting. You don't just wake up and decide to open an office in Berlin.
No, you get a lead first. Someone emails you from, halfway across the world. Looks like a big deal.
And if the contract's big enough, you buy a plane ticket. You send your best person.
You fly long haul, yeah. But, and I guess this is the key point, you're only doing that for the really high-value, well-qualified leads.
The sure things.
Exactly. Which sounds efficient, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not flying 12 hours for a maybe. That's just bad business.
It sounds efficient. The finance department absolutely loves it. But the source argues it's a huge trap. Because if you only show up to collect the check, you're not selling. You're just order taking.
You're collecting the harvest, but you're not doing any of the farming.
You're not doing any of the farming. And we kind of take the farming for granted at home, don't we?
Oh, totally. At home, your team is at trade shows. They're chasing smaller leads. They're building relationships with people who might not buy for years. They're grinding.
That's the farming. That's what creates the pipeline. But abroad, you're just a tourist with a contract. You swoop in, you sign the one deal that fell in your lap, and then you fly home. You're not building anything sustainable.
And eventually, the sure things, they run out.
They run out, and that's when you hit the wall. And the customers start saying,
"You're 3,000 miles away. How are you going to support me?"
Precisely. The 3 a.m. panic. What if something goes wrong? Who do I call?
So the company says, okay, fine. We'll open an office. We'll plant a flag. Problem solved.
And that is the exact moment the real trouble starts. The source actually compares it to Schrodinger's cat.
Oh, I like that. So before you open the box, the office is in this state of, perfect potential.
Yes. It's simple in your head. Rent a space, hire someone, buy a laptop, a live cat, happy business. But once you actually open the box, once you sign that lease, you often find a dead cat.
That's a bit grim, but I get it. The reality is much, much messier. So let's open the box. What's the first thing that goes wrong?
It starts with purpose. And this sounds so basic, but what does this office actually do?
Well, it sells stuff. It's a sales office. It's right there in the name.
Is it, though? Or is it just answering the phone? Because you immediately run into what the source calls the shipping dilemma. Let's say you ship direct from your factory in Ohio.
Seems easiest for me, operational.
Easiest for you, sure. But for the customer in Munich, now they have to deal with customs, import duties, paperwork. They didn't sign up to become an importer. They just wanted to buy your product.
Ah, I see. Okay, so option B. I ship it to my new German sales office first, and they send it to the customer.
Now the customer's happy. But congratulations, you've just turned your six-figure salesperson into a warehouse worker. They're printing labels and packing boxes instead of calling prospects.
That's an expensive roll of packing tape.
It really is. And on top of that, there's a huge legal trap here that the source warns about. The permanent establishment trap.
Okay, that sounds ominous. Permanent establishment. Why should that keep me up at night?
Because it's the point where the local tax authority suddenly notices you. In a lot of countries, the second you have a physical office, even just one person in a small room, the government says, aha, you are permanently established here.
And that triggers, what, taxes?
Everything.
Yeah.
Corporate tax obligations, local compliance, employment laws you've never even heard of. You might suddenly owe taxes in a country where you haven't made a single dollar of profit yet.
Wow. So you can't just fly under the radar.
Not if you have an address on your website. You need serious legal advice before you sign anything.
Okay, so the logistics are a nightmare, and the legal side is a minefield. Let's see you navigate all that. Now you need a person, the human dilemma, who runs the show.
This is where it gets really tricky. You basically got two options. Option A, the transfer. You take Jane, your star performer from HQ, and you parachute her in.
That seems like the safe bet, right?
Yeah.
She knows the product, she knows the culture, you trust her.
You trust her to sell, but do you trust her to, run a business?
Ah, I see where this is going.
Because a remote office is a mini startup. Can Jane handle payroll? Can she deal with the landlord? Or is she just going to drown in admin?
Not to mention the culture shock. Selling in Chicago is not the same as selling in Tokyo.
Not even close. She could be a fish out of water. Okay, so what's option B?
The local hire. You find someone on the ground who knows the market.
Makes a lot of sense. But how did you hire them? You're 3,000 miles away. You probably did a few Zoom calls. Maybe you flew in once for a coffee.
And now you're handing them the keys to the kingdom.
The keys, the bank account, your company's entire reputation in that country to a relative stranger. It's an incredible leap of faith.
And that leads right into the trust issue, doesn't it? The source mentions financial risks I hadn't even considered.
Oh, yeah. The new office needs cash. For rent, for expenses. At HQ, you probably have what the source calls the 4 eyes principle.
4 eyes, meaning 2 people have to approve things.
Exactly. 2 signatures on a big check. One person submits an expense, another approves it. It's just standard practice to prevent fraud.
But in a remote office?
It's just one person. The 4 eyes are gone. You barely have 2. If they decide to misuse funds, you might not know for months. That constant low-level stress for the owner back home is enormous.
And I imagine it's stressful for the employee, too. Let's talk about the psychological toll. The source uses this amazing phrase, the tyranny of distance.
It's so good because it's so true. We focus on profit and loss, but we forget about the human being in that lonely outpost.
Right. Back headquarters, there's a buzz, there's camaraderie. If you lose a big deal, you can vent to the person at the next desk.
You grab a coffee, you complain, you get a, hey, we'll get them next time. There's a support system.
But at the remote office?
It's just silence. You lose a sale and you're just sitting alone in an empty room. There's nobody to turn to. The source says the normal ups and downs of sales feel like a daily battering when you're all by yourself.
That isolation must be crushing. But it's not just the loneliness, is it? It's the distraction. The source has this one statistic that it blew my mind.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
That remote reps can end up spending 40 to 60% of their time on non-sales activities.
40 to 60%. Let that sink in.
That's half their week?
It's half their job. We already talked about them being the logistics manager. But they're also the IT support when the printer breaks. They're the accountant chasing an invoice. They're the office manager ordering supplies.
So you're paying a premium sales salary for a part-time admin assistant.
Exactly. And what does that do to their positivity? The source says it just saps it. You can't spend 3 hours arguing with customs and then immediately pick up the phone and be this charming, high-energy salesperson. It's just not possible.
So they're less effective, not because they're bad at their job, but because their job has become this impossible mix of tasks.
Which then creates friction with HQ, who are just looking at a dashboard and saying, hey, why aren't the numbers going up? It's a recipe for disaster.
And a total management nightmare. How do you even know if they're working? That's the metrics problem, right?
It is. In the office, I can see activity, I can hear the buzz. Abroad, I have to take your word for it. And in B2B tech, a sales cycle can be, what, a year?
Easily. So you can't just look at orders received in the first quarter.
No. They could be doing amazing work, laying groundwork that'll pay off next year. Or
they could be watching Netflix.
They could be. And you just don't know. That uncertainty is paralyzing for managers.
It seems like training could bridge some of this gap, but the source talks about it in a way I didn't expect.
Yeah, it's not just product training. If you hired a local person, sure, they need to learn the product. But if you sent Jim the transfer, he needs cultural training.
And maybe accounting training.
Yes. That's the one everyone misses. If you expect your top salesperson to manage the books, you better teach them how. You're setting them up for failure otherwise.
It all comes down to planning, doesn't it? Which brings us to a really practical point. Location. Where do you actually put the pin on the map?
The default answer is always go where the customers are.
Be close to the money. Seems logical.
But the source suggests that might be short-sighted. Maybe you shouldn't be where your biggest customer is. Maybe you should be where the best talent is, or where the travel connections are best.
So think about it like a hub.
Exactly. Or even look at the employment laws. Where is it easier to hire? And, to be blunt, where is it easier to fire someone if it all goes wrong?
That's a grim thought, but a necessary one. You have to plan for the divorce before the wedding.
You do. And you have to define failure. You have to avoid the money pit scenario where you just keep throwing good money after bad because you don't want to admit it's not working.
You need a kill switch.
You need a kill switch, a pre-agreed point where you say, okay, if we haven't hit X by Y date, we pull the plug.
But you also need realistic milestones for success, too. You can't expect year 1 profits to match year 10 profits back home.
No, you have to price in the farming time. You have to price in the mistakes. There's that great quote in the text from Niels Bohr: prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future.
It's perfect for this. You can't predict everything, but you can at least plan for the likely chaos.
You can plan for the tax headache. You can plan for the loneliness. You can plan for the admin burden.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for someone who's, dreaming of global expansion right now?
I think it's that opening a remote office is not a sales decision. That's the fundamental mistake. It's an operational decision, it's a legal decision, and more than anything, it's a psychological one.
It's not just about hiring a great salesperson and hoping for the best.
No, it's about building the entire support infrastructure that allows that person to actually sell. If you don't solve for the loneliness and the admin and the IT, the whole thing is doomed to fail.
As the source says, careful planning can't guarantee success, but it can reduce the opportunities for failure.
A little worry now saves a lot of heartache and a lot of cash later on.
Absolutely. Now, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We tend to think of global expansion as this badge of honor. It means you've made it.
It's the ultimate sign of maturity for a business. If you're not global, you're small time.
Right. But after everything we've talked about today, the tyranny of distance, the legal traps, the psychological toll, here's a question. Is it possible that for many companies, the smarter, more profitable play is actually to stay local?
It's a brave thing for a CEO to say no to that kind of growth. It goes against every business instinct. But you're right, sometimes going deeper in the territory you already know is much, much better than going wider.
It's something to think about. That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Take care, everyone, and watch out for those landmines.